of the Abigail Phelps chapter DAR, it is a pleasure to introduce our presentation today on the Guiding Eyes for the Blind program. Now, as you know, Betty Goldfarb is a very good friend to our chapter. She plays taps at our Wreaths Across America ceremonies, she marches in the Memorial Day parade with us, and she attends meetings as a prospective member. Betty is a Guiding Eyes volunteer and is very involved in the training program for guide dogs for the blind. And Betty had hoped to be here with us today, but something unexpected came up and she was called out of town. But we're very fortunate to have with us Maureen Hollis. She is the regional manager for the puppy program in northeastern Connecticut. And I will let her introduce our canine guest in a moment. Maureen is very dedicated to her work with the Guiding Eyes puppy candidates and their trainers. This organization is an accredited member of the International Guide Dog Federation, which establishes worldwide standards for the breeding and training of these fabulous dogs. Guiding Eyes is a non-profit organization that provides superbly bred and trained guide dogs to men and women who are blind or visually impaired. Now, the dogs that are unsuited for guide work may be used as service dogs for children on the autism spectrum. These dogs really expand the horizons for people to achieve their life's goals. And this is fabulous. These highly trained dogs are offered free of charge to individuals who will benefit so much from their service. Guiding Eyes relies upon contributions to fulfill its mission. Betty and Maureen truly are extraordinary people creating exceptional guide dogs. Welcome, Maureen.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'd like to introduce Ivan. Ivan is a 13-month-old Labrador Retriever. He lives with me and my family, and I have had him since he was about 3 months old. I manage the puppy program in and around Connecticut. So we have actually 5 regions in Connecticut, and Betty is from our northern region, but we also have regions in Ledyard. Down in southern Connecticut, we cover the entire coast on the south side of Connecticut. We have another chapter in Middlebury, and we actually have one out in Westport. So we are pretty much all over the place. This one in northern Connecticut meets in Avon and Granby. And we often do our dog evaluations here in Simsbury, right here at Eno Hall. So hopefully Ivan will behave himself today, but he is a puppy, so I may have to redirect him at certain points to let him know that he might not be on track. He is a puppy in training, and he has what we call an in-for training date, IFT date, of May. So he will be leaving me in May and possibly sooner than that. So he's almost done with his training for the puppy program, and then he will go in for 4 to 6 months of harness training. Guiding Eyes for the Blind, our mission is to supply our blind and visually impaired graduates with a guide dog free of charge, and we hope to provide them with better mobility, more independence, and more opportunities that way. But as mentioned, we also have a satellite program that is Healing Autism, and a lot of our dogs that do not make it through guide dog training will go to an alternate career, one of which is Healing Autism, but they can also be chosen for detection. Many of our dogs are working with Connecticut State Police, or Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, or a private firm named MSA. Ivan is posing for pictures here. I think he's really checking everything out. So all these dogs actually are doing quite a bit of service in and around Connecticut, and you may have seen them. Many people are more familiar with Fidelco, but Fidelco only does shepherds. We do Labrador Retrievers because we feel that they are very close to the human personality. I like to describe Labrador Retrievers as the party animals of the dog world. They just love life. They are just wonderful dogs with great personalities. And we do have about 8% shepherds, and that Shepherds make great guide dogs too. There is nothing wrong with Shepherds. We just love working with labs and have great success with them. And then we also are able to place them in alternate careers, which really help a lot of people in different aspects of life. So many people have curiosity about what it entails to become a guide dog. So I'm going to go into that a little bit, and then I'm also going to tell you that we are a nonprofit, and so everything that we do is donation-based. And so it is important when I come out and talk to groups like yourselves that we get the word out that we need both volunteers helping us to do what we do, because we cannot do it without volunteers. They are the heart of what we do. And we also are always looking for ways to do some fundraising for our organization so that we can continue to provide the services we offer to our sight-impaired graduates. Some of the things I love about our program is we've placed over 7,000 guide dog teams. We follow up with all our guide dog teams on a yearly basis and more if they need it, so they have ongoing support after they leave us. We graduate probably about 12 to 14 teams a month, so we actually have a very active program. We have 450 dogs on program every year, and that's just puppy program. That's not out and about guiding. But out of those dogs, about 50% will become guide dogs. So that's why we need so many volunteers, because guide work is really, really hard work for a dog. They have to be super, super confident. We breed our own dogs. We have a geneticist who specially selects our dogs for great personalities, medium size, and excellent confidence. Confidence is the leading factor in making a guide dog. And one of those leading things that we need from a dog is a dog that's confident enough to disobey you when it really counts. So many people have a misconception that our blind graduates are just being led through the world by the dog, but that's actually not true. The graduates tell the dog where to go and what to do. And so if the dog deems that it's not safe, if they're heading towards a hole and their person says forward, the dog must disobey to keep their person safe. That takes a really confident dog, because as you know, many of you with pets, you've seen the look on your dog's face possibly when they get in trouble. They don't like it. They're lovely, lovely animals, and they want to please us. And so it takes a certain amount of confidence for a guide dog to disobey willingly to protect somebody. They have to make a decision. That's not an easy thing to train. You actually have to be born with that. And then one of the things we do is nurture that. So we choose the dogs for confidence, and then we try very hard to build their confidence while they're in puppy program. And one of the ways that we build their confidence is by doing things like this today. I'm sure that he may go to another Daughters of the American Revolution meeting in his life. We never know. He will have to go on elevators, on all kinds of stairs. He's been in restaurants, pharmacies, post offices, Home Depot, anywhere you go, he goes. Because we just don't know which graduate he'll end up with, whether he'll be in a city or a country setting. Ivan, heel, heel. Good job. And he's saying, I really, really hope she gives me some treats. We do actually use some food training. I'm going to be refrain from doing that too much while I'm speaking, because he'll start to drool, which is one of the things. It's a little bit of a drawback for dogs, but he knows I have the treats, and he actually is solid enough. He doesn't really need them too much. But when they're puppies, we use a lot of treats. So labs are extremely food motivated. So it's not hard to train them with treats, but we do back off of them quite a bit towards the end of training. And he also loves toys. So if I had a toy here, he'd be very excited and he'd want to play with that. That's another motivating factor. Our regions actually encompass from all the way from Maine down to North Carolina, and then we have one out in Ohio as well. So anywhere along the eastern seaboard, you may see our puppies in training. I'm sure there are a lot of them trying to get through the drifts in DC this week. And it's wonderful for the dogs. Sit, puppy. Good boy, come on. It's really wonderful for them to be out and about doing the things that we do. And they do have to behave. And that can be really hard if you're a puppy. But Ivan's been working really hard for a long time with me. I also have another dog named Mildred. Now, even though I work for Guiding Eyes, this is part of a volunteer program that I still do. So I don't get paid to have a dog in my house, and I actually have 2 of them right now, which is a little crazy. But we always need volunteers, and so I actually took an extra puppy at Christmas when we tend to have people who don't want to take something extra onto their lives at the holidays. But if you know anybody who loves animals and would like to volunteer doing something with animals, this is a great way to get a nice young dog. We have training classes that people go to every week for the first 12 weeks, and then they go every other week for the remainder of the time they have the dog. So that's what I do. I support about 40 people around Connecticut who do this. It's a lot of fun. If you miss playing things like hopscotch, playing it with a dog is really something. So we have a lot of fun classes where we pretend to do things like drive buses. We have to expose the dogs to what they might consider unusual people who may walk with balance issues, or canes, or walkers, or wheelchairs. So hospital settings they have to be in. They have to be able to be in close spaces like buses or trains. Everything we do is always geared towards the person who gets the dog in the end. And that includes the Healing Autism Children in our autism program. Ivan, heel. We have the dogs tether the children so that if they run, the dog plants their feet and the child is tethered to the dog and cannot get too far. So it's a safety factor for the parents who have not been able to get out and about with their families because they're worried about their child's safety. So that is what our autism program is like. One of the things that I love about this program is I started as a puppy raiser. I have 6 children, and so I started when my youngest was 2 and my oldest was 14. And a lot of people think that they might not be able to do this because they have busy lives. But if you have a busy life, that means you're taking your dog to a lot of places with you. And so that's a benefit. We have people who are younger in high school who help us. I have college students who volunteer for us. We have retirees, we have moms, we have dads. And everybody is welcome to try this. It's not for everybody. We have what we call a pre-placement class. And a lot of people come and they find out what it's all about, what it really entails. And then they can either sit dogs for us or raise a dog for us. Our home office is actually in New York, but because we're all around Connecticut, it's fairly easy for somebody in Connecticut to volunteer for us. And I can't tell you how amazing it is to be able to raise my kids to do something where they get to do, I feel, almost has a global perspective. Some of our dogs have been placed in Portugal, Hong Kong, Brazil. We don't know where the dogs are going to end up. Some of those countries don't have their own guide dog programs. So it's not just helping people in the States, you're really helping people all around the world. And I don't know of too many places that are so far-reaching like that and do it without a cost to the person who's getting the dog. We actually have them come in. They stay at our facility, so we fly them in or get them in on some other kind of transport, whatever they're comfortable with. We have a dorm, and we feed them for the 3 or 4 weeks that they're there training with their dog. We also have a home training program. Ivan, sit. And that is for people who either cannot travel because of work or other obligations or choose not to. Some people are very comfortable having a dog trained right in their neighborhood because we train the dogs to certain routes. We get the dogs at about 8 weeks of age. So if you can imagine, they're just so cute. They're so tiny. And I think what's harder for people to imagine is a dog that is bigger, more excited, and more playful. So people often think about our puppy program with just puppies. Ivan is still a puppy. He loves to play. His favorite thing is to play tug. So if I had a toy here, he would definitely want to be using that toy. That is his favorite thing. He also loves any kind of ball. So he loves to play fetch, just like a lot of regular dog. And the other thing that people don't know is that our dogs play. I think a lot of people think, well, they're working all day when they're in the service industry, but they're regular dogs. They need exercise, they need play. They need to sit at your feet when you're watching TV and just be close to you. So it is a great way to have a really nicely bred pet for a year. And then if you're like me and you're addicted, you get another one right away when they leave. But I think you guys probably have a lot of questions. I want to make sure that I answer the questions that are important to you as well. So, if you have questions, please raise your hand and let me know, because I would be glad to answer anything.
I know that it's hard for the person to give the dog up, but what about the dog going to a new person?
Well, that can be hard for some dogs more than others. Again, the confidence is a big factor. So dogs that are very confident don't have too much of a problem transferring to another handler. But when they do get to the training school, they are switched from handler to handler as part of their training at a certain point in training, so that we can make sure that they can transfer the responsibility and make sure that they're going to be comfortable working with their new graduate. 3 weeks is not a long time to train. When our graduates come in, it's really intense for them. They're with their dogs from 6 in the morning until they go to bed at night. The dogs live with them in their dorm room. And if you can imagine, that's a big life change for some people have never had a dog before. And some people have had dogs, but they've been pets, and we treat our pets very differently than a guide dog. So it's very intense. It's a very intense relationship. One of the things we do in our puppy class is switch handlers in puppy class. And that's why it's kind of important to go to class, because if everybody's using the right hand signal and they're all doing the same thing, the dog understands the language as you pass them to another person. So that's why it's important for us to have some continuity across the training so that the dogs understand. Dogs' language, their first language is body language, so we use hand signals as well as verbal, and we use other basic dog training like body blocking, and even standing up straight and being confident is language to a dog. And the dogs have to learn our language, but we also have to learn theirs. And they're much better at learning ours than we are at learning theirs.
Does the dog know in some way, do you know that the dog knows that that dog is now with a person who can't see?
I think they do know. They are really so great at reading body cues. And one of the things that we see over and over is that the dogs want to get it right. But also they're getting a lot of cues from their person. We give them so much positive praise. Even somebody who is not verbal, because we also have our special needs department for blind, deaf, or people who have maybe balance issues, cerebral palsy, things like that. They have to be sight impaired first. Ivan's bored. Sorry. This is great. This is actually what we want him to do. But when those people can't speak and the dog isn't hearing praise, there's another way to do it. I've seen a video, at least one video, where the man in the video was tapping his leg as reward for the dog, and the dog understood that this was a positive thing. It was probably paired with treats and petting at first. Touch is a big part of our program. Not just treats. Treats have to be paired with touching and loving and praise. All those things together we call use of you. I tell my students all the time, increase your use of you, because it's very, very affirming to the dog to know that their person's pleased with them, especially a Labrador. If anybody here, how many people here have had Labs? You know how much they love their people. They love to play. They love to be loved. They have a great personality, and the shepherds are extremely devoted to their people. So they just want to make sure that they're doing the right things. They like to be on track, and all those things that transfers right to the person who has them. So that's, I think the praise is the biggest thing. If they think they're doing the right thing, that's important. Whether they know there's some kind of disability, I think they can sense it because the person has a very tentative step. So that again is body language the dog picks up on, especially when the person is first paired with their dog. That's a huge leap of faith. They take a handle and the dog pulls into the harness. So there's this absolute pull, and the person has to be confident enough to follow that. And that first day is really tough for them because they have to put their confidence in the dog, and how many people ever do that? It's just amazing. So it's a leap of faith for them. And the dog is very careful. I have one dog that went to a woman who I was really lucky enough to meet, and she showed me how the dog worked. She showed me the dog off leash, playing, swimming, doing everything a dog does. And then she said, let me put her in harness and show you what happens. As soon as she went into harness, her steps were so careful. She was very careful to lead out in a way that her person could follow her safely. It was amazing to see and so affirming. That was a dog that I just adored. And to see her doing something so good for somebody else, all those late nights when you're going out in the blizzard to make sure your dog gets busy, it all comes back to it's all worth it. It's great. So they're just wonderful, wonderful dogs. So hi, buddy. Run around this way.
Maureen, I have a question. I know that they have to go through some examinations and tests before they are graduates and ready to go. What would the tests be like that you could really...
For the dogs?
Yes, that you can really tell that
we have a lot.
They're ready.
Yeah, we have a lot. So when they're 8 weeks old, they have a puppy test. Even before 8 weeks, we're actually putting them through their paces in a way. But it's really gentle. So if you go up, we have a early socialization department, and the puppies at 6 weeks, when they're getting weaned from their moms and they're starting to go out a little bit without their moms, will go into a room for about 15 minutes with a volunteer. And there are things hanging, like little pom-poms hanging from a little jungle gym, little steps. I mean, everything's mini, so that the puppies can go up and down. And there's some toys that have different sounds, bells, or lights flashing. All of these things to see what does the puppy do. How confident is that puppy? How resilient is the puppy? Resilience is a huge thing. It's okay to be scared when you've never ever seen something, but can you recover from it? I know my son is so scared of spiders that he has a really hard time recovering after he sees a spider. It's like those little flashbacks, and I know a lot of people who don't like spiders, so I'm sure there's somebody in here who feels the same way. But a dog, when they see something that's scary or unusual, a guide dog has to recover almost immediately. See that and say, whoa, wow, I don't know what that was, but still keep working. Whereas if they're not that resilient and they take a longer time to recover, we know they're not right for guide work. So not only do they have that early socialization, but then they have a puppy test. The puppy test is the same test that they go through pretty much at the end, maybe minus a vacuum cleaner, because we do have a vacuum cleaner at the end. We don't do that to little puppies, but they have this test, and we actually track the dogs throughout their lifetime. Betty, as you may know, is a photographer, and she helps me a lot when I'm doing some of these tests. We have 3 dog evaluations. So the puppy test is at 8 weeks, but then I do a dog evaluation at 4 months, 8 months, and 13 months. And then when the dog goes in for his test at the end, when they're somewhere between 15 to 18 months, that's the IFT that I mentioned before, they do that bigger test, and that tells us how likely is it that this dog will become a guide dog. And we're looking for things like the resilience. We're looking for how quickly do they recover from noise, how quickly do they respond without food, how quickly do they respond with food, can they keep from taking a sandwich off the table. It's in Tupperware, but that's still pretty exciting for a dog, a Labrador. What happens there? There's a bat hanging from the ceiling that goes around and around. How exciting is that for the dog? Can they come back and concentrate and work with their person? Because we need to know whether they're going to chase birds or squirrels. How likely is it going to be that they do those things? All those things are likely dog behaviors. There's nothing wrong with them. So we always find another career for our dogs that don't make guide, because they've still done a lot of work for us. They've still done their best, and we recognize that for the dog. So we always say the dogs choose their careers.
Is thunder and lightning challenging for the dog?
We don't actually put a dog on program if they have a thunder reaction. Usually that's a noise sensitivity and also maybe vibration. So if they have that, it's also hereditary. So we try to weed that out. We don't breed those dogs. We also will make sure the geneticist knows that. And one of the problems with Thunder is that you can't detect it often until they're about 2 or 3. So the dogs seem to build that fear, and it's pretty deep-seated when they have it.
It doesn't happen every day either.
No, and it's very weird. They can't tell where it's coming from. I think that bothers them. It doesn't. The guides that are solid, they really don't have a problem with it at all. He's heard several. He doesn't really care about anything. He's just, very laid back. But I had another dog who really didn't like vibrations, and even though she was too young to show Thunder sensitivity, I'm betting that she will at some point. She was released, but she didn't like things like the vibration on a soda machine. Or if my husband loves electronic music. We used to call it weird music when we were in college. But this poor puppy, as soon as she heard that, ran around the house trying to hide under things because she couldn't figure out what that was. And so her resilience was very low. And we had an ice storm, and when the ice hit the window, she tried to crawl under my chair because she was shaking. So those kind of things, that's not going to be a good guide dog because they can't function when they're that scared. They're not going to be able to keep their person safe because they want to be kept safe. So it's a big difference.
If they're released, do you put them up for adoption to the public, or what?
We do, actually. So the first thing that happens, there's a little process there. It depends on how long the person has had the dog. So our raisers have to have the dog for 6 months or longer. Sometimes, just because of life situations, they may not. So if they move, I've had people move and they have to go to another state, and then their dog goes to another home, or else it wasn't the right feeling for them. They weren't enjoying the process. We want everybody to enjoy our volunteer opportunities. So if you're not enjoying it, they come to me and tell me this isn't for me, and we find the dog another home. And so for adoption, if the person the raiser has had the dog for 6 months or longer, they are offered the dog if there are no other careers. So first we have to see, is there another career that the dog is suited for? And that's, again, a source of income for us so that we can keep on doing the things we do. So Connecticut State Police has a budget, and so some of that comes to us if they buy some of our dogs. Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, the same thing. Healing Autism, we provide the dogs for free, so that's not the same. But usually it's the softer, quieter, calmer dogs that go to Healing Autism, and the higher energy dogs that love to sniff and are very athletic go to detection. So there's really a career opportunity for everyone. Now, if those careers aren't available to the dog, sometimes the dog is what we call soft, very soft, and we say this dog would really be happy being a pet. That is a cherished thing. That is not a failure. Being a companion is a great career for a dog. So if the dog is pet only, then the raiser gets the first right of refusal. If they are not taking the dog back, and sometimes they just can't. I have one released dog and one rescue dog, so I really can't take any other dogs back. I have 4 dogs in my house as it is right now. So then they would be offered to public adoption. And in addition, sometimes we do have priority adoptions. So people who are very excited to have a fully trained adult dog and maybe can give a larger donation or do PR for us with the dog so that we can reach more people. So those things, sometimes people might give quite a bit of money for a dog that is really nicely trained. But those dogs have to be so wonderfully behaved because we really hope that the person's going to talk to other people about our program. This is the biggest thing for us, is to really have a good reputation, a very fine guide dog, and we can help as many people as possible. Helping people is our focus. That's what we want to do. So.
Do you work with Purple Paws for veterans?
No, I don't, but it's not that we don't have dogs go to veterans. We do. We don't have a specific department that does that, but and I don't know what Purple Paws does. It might be something more like a companion.
They fill the refrigerators, turn on the television?
Oh, okay, so that is a service dog. No, but another service organization that may do that is Needs up in Massachusetts. It's Northeast Assistance Dogs, and many people know about them, and they're really great. There are a lot of assistant dog organizations. I think one of the most important things to keep in mind is that right now there is a little bit of a problem with the internet. You can get a service dog certification. I say certification with the air quotes because there's nothing that the people have to do besides pay a fee. And so we're having some problem with access ourselves because business owners are really getting burned by having people bring their pets in when they've bought a vest off the internet. Their dogs are not necessarily well trained, and that creates a problem for our blind graduates. So even people with harnesses on their dogs have been turned away because of bad experiences by business owners. And in Connecticut, that's not legal. They can't turn them away, but sometimes they don't feel like they have a choice. So if you do know anybody who is saying, I'm going to get a vest for my dog because I want to take them places with me, please educate them because it's actually a problem. Our dogs are also trained to not react to other dogs or people. And so they go through so much training. They have to ignore those kind of distractions in order to keep their person safe. And if a dog is in a supermarket that's not trained because somebody brings them in there and thinks that they would just like to have their pet with them, that creates a hazard for the people who really do have to use and rely on the dogs. So because sometimes those dogs are quite reactive to our dogs, and we have had those situations, it's really tough. So.
If you were to house a dog, do you have your own veterinarians that you use, or can someone use a local vet?
Oh, that's a great question. We have we have veterinarians at our center. However, even though they make all the decisions for our dogs, usually what people will do will email or call our vet to get authorization to take them to their local vet. All vet bills are covered. In fact, we give out the crates, the collars, the front line for the fleas and ticks, now we're using NexGuard as well, and the Heart Guard, and cover all vet care. And we give you a crate too, because the dogs are crate trained so that you don't have a lot of accidents even when they're puppies. We try to help you with that and guide you through that whole process. Some people really hate that process, and then you can also start with an older puppy that somebody else has started. Betty has started puppies for us. But she likes them when they're smaller because, as you know, when you get older and you have balance issues, and in the winter when there's ice, it may be that you don't want to ever handle a dog that's his size, but maybe a smaller puppy is something that you want to do. So there is a fit for everybody, and we really try to support our raisers. About the biggest thing that they end up purchasing, either toys and food. Food is something that they purchase. Toys are just my addiction, so I love to buy toys for my dog, so I probably have bought more toys than you can possibly imagine. So anybody else have any questions about the dogs?
Just curious, is there any standard food that's recommended?
Well, we actually try to make it so that it's easy for our puppy raisers to find the food. So at the kennels, we use IAMS lamb and rice for the older dogs. It's not that we recommend it, it's that it's easily found. It's a mid-grade food. And then for the puppies right now, we're using Science Diet for most of them, which has a little bit of a higher fat content for the puppies. But I think those companies help us by giving some discount. So, if there was another company that gave us a discount, probably we could work with them as well. So it really just depends. I don't think there's necessarily a recommended food, but we try to keep on the mid-grade to higher grade foods for the puppies. So, how many commands?
At this age, how many commands or signs does he react to or no?
Well, sit down, over is one where I do this and he flops over. I don't use that one too much. Stand is where I want them to, well, I'll show you. If he was in an aisle for like an airplane or a bus. Ivan. Oh, and you stood up. Sit. Good boy. Let's see, I'll do it with the food because I know he's going to be stand. There you go, good job. And typically he shouldn't need food for that, but we're on film. I want to make sure we get it right. So I'm having TV anxiety. So, but so that's where somebody needs to pass by him in an aisle, and we need him to stand up to move. And he also knows heel, which I think you've seen me use a couple of times here. Our heel is a standing heel where we don't actually move with a dog when we're doing that. He has to walk on a loose leash. That's essential for him. So there should be a J in the leash. He has to know, let me think, stay. They will teach them forward when they're in harness, but in puppy program we don't. Load up in the car is something that we'll do. Most of the commands that I teach my puppy raisers are just basic obedience that you probably have taught your dogs anywhere. He can do a stay, downstairs sit stay. So if I ask him to, stay. And he can do stay. Ivan, come. Good boy. So he'll also come to me and things like that. So he has to be freed from every command. So he's really supposed to hold the commands as long as I ask him to without the stay command. So we have quite a bit of obedience, and each school is different. Each school has their own purpose for things. He knows touch. Touch is you touch, do it, touch. He says, I don't remember that one. I don't remember that one. So, but it's funny because the obedience is actually secondary to the socialization. So I have puppy raisers who are wonderful. They work so hard, and they come to class and their obedience is spectacular. But if they go into Home Depot and their dog has never seen Home Depot, it doesn't matter. They have to really be able to handle all those weird different things like, the smells of a garden center, the sound of a saw buzzing, stairs. Stairs are a big thing. Dogs don't have stairs. I mean, if stairs are not natural in our environment, so those are things that can be really scary for dogs. They have to really learn how to use their bodies. Underfootings are something else that we look for. So things like small grates, the ones that you'll see set into the sidewalk are those bubble plates that are at the intersections. If a dog won't walk over those, that's a problem because they have to be able to walk over those things instead of walking around because it may not be safe to have the person walk around. They have to find a straight line. That's the straight line concept is what they learn in harness training, to go from point A to point B in a straight line and not vary it unless there's an obstacle. So the way that the blind people have described it to me is that the canes are obstacle finders and the dogs are obstacle avoiders. So, and that's a good difference between the way that they travel. So.
Donations are tax deductible?
Yes.
Nonprofit?
Yes, it's a 501c. Yep, and it's terrible because I'm not a tax person, but yes. And there is a tax number on the website, and anybody who is interested, there's also a donation on our website, a donation button. So it's a really great organization. I have to say, I volunteered for them for 7 years before I started working for them. It has been a dream job. One of the things I really, really love is not only being able to affect our blind graduates in such a positive way, but I feel like I'm able to meet so many people with good hearts who are trying to do good things in the world. And when you turn on the news channels and you think that everything's at a loss, when I go to work every day, I never feel like that because I am always with people who are trying to make a difference and they just aren't making excuses. They're saying, I'm making a difference. It doesn't matter what's happening in the world around me, I can still do it. And I think that's important for all of us to really believe in. So,
Thank you.
thank you. Ivan, what a good boy, Ivan.
Well, Maureen, thank you for this wonderful program. And the Abigail Phelps chapter would like you to have this donation to use for the excellent, incredible work that the Guiding Eyes program does.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, everybody. Yes, they're clapping for you.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.